Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of The New Rules with yours truly, Darnell-Jamal. And today, I'm joined by two incredible guests that I have admired for a long time. Both are artist activists who are weaving a variety of stories in their careers and really touching people in ways across the world that I hope to do only an inch of within my own professional career. One of which we have, the dynamic actor and storyteller, Harper. Hello.
Hey, Darnell, how are you? Good morning.
Uh, Good morning. How's everything in quarantine for you?
Oh, everything is good. I'm just really starting to travel for the first time, and so very, I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that we're able to interact. I'm hopeful that we're going to be able to, ultimately connect with each other. I think obviously things have changed, but hopefully get back to a place of connection and hopefully even deeper connection than before.
No, I agree with you completely. Like this is like the first time I've done a trip or two, not that far away from New York, but it was kind of surreal being around other people. I'm getting like 5 blocks from my house. It's a little scary, but I'm like, okay, we can go back to normal at some point in time. But thank you so much for being here. And our other guest is also the equally incredible and dynamic Ebonee Davis. Hi.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. I'm excited to be here, excited for this conversation. So thank you for having me.
Of course. And we're actually, it's funny, in both what you just alluded to, Hill, of reaching other people and getting out and traveling. And I know that, with your space in mental health and self love, these are different questions that a lot of the audience have. And so we're going to kind of get to that in quite a moment. But in this first part, I really kind of want to dig deep into both of your processes. Hill, you have a storied career as an actor. And definitely it's something to strive towards for those who want to enter that field. And Ebonee, you're a model, obviously an incredible model, but you've pivoted towards getting into more acting and getting into that. I'm curious to know what was, I guess, the click in your mind that you wanted to go into that. Was this a passion that happened prior to modeling or simultaneously, or was this something that you felt would expand how you touch people through your art?
Yeah, my journey into acting very much parallels my spiritual journey. In this spiritual journey, in finding yourself, learning yourself, knowing yourself, getting to know your authentic truth, you realize that you are carrying so many layers of self that don't necessarily belong to you. You take them on as a result of programming from family, friends, community, school, all of these things that we're indoctrinated with. And so when I was on this journey of really trying to find and express my authentic truth, I realized that that is a process that a lot of actors go through. I started going to training as an actor at the Terry Knickerbocker School in Brooklyn, and you get in front of your classmates and you're told to, have this interaction with a partner or something like that. And it's like, oh, damn, I don't know how to be angry. Like, I can't allow myself to access anger because maybe when I was 8 years old, I had a trigger that made it then unsafe for me to be able to express my anger. And so now when I'm in the situation where I have to tap into that emotion, I don't have access to it or something like that, not necessarily anger, but anything. I don't know how to express happiness. I don't know how to express love. And so there's a level of just authenticity that you have to be able to bring forth as an actor that I began tapping into through deprogramming my own mind and really getting to know who I was authentically. So, all of my art really is tools for my own healing. And my hope with my own healing is that it inspires other people to heal. But that's just sort of like a byproduct because the real focus is really just being free, living in love, you know what I mean? being true to who I am, being authentic. So yeah,
Right.
that's how the sort of acting thing came about.
And it's interesting. I do have a question here by excuse me, Freaky Frenchie. What influenced one of your spiritual awakenings? Like, what was that one?
What
I guess
influenced
moment.
my spiritual awakening?
Mm-hmm.
Like devastating loss, abandonment, hitting rock bottom, engaging in behaviors that weren't necessarily aligned with the person I want to be, and ultimately feeling very sad and, depressed about it, and realizing that the only way to get different results and to put myself in a different situation is to make different choices. This healing journey, this spirituality journey is really about accountability toward yourself first and foremost. And, there are a lot of things that happen to us as children and growing up, even as adults, that we don't have a lot of control over. And so it's not about taking blame. And putting the burden of those things that have happened to you on yourself. But it's about realizing that you're the only person who has the power, to step through that, overcome that, to become the person that you want to be. And it truly is, this reality truly is a projection of what's happening, of your psychological state, what's happening in your mind. And so if you are able to get your mind in alignment, then ultimately the things that you want will manifest. And so, just going through a lot of trauma and realizing that I don't want my life to be a product of my mind being programmed by these traumatic events that have happened to me. I want my mind to be a product of my love that I have for myself and my belief that I have in myself.
Right. And I think that's incredible. And even to the original entry point into this conversation about, using your spiritual awakening as the source of your pivot, as you are wanting to do more in the acting realm. Hill, you also didn't start as an actor. You went to law school, if I'm correct. And what for you was it a similar experience that you kind of had your own internal awakening before transitioning into the career that you have become to have?
Wow. Well, I'll just first off, I want to say, Ebony, that's so beautiful and so inspiring to hear you talk about that process, because I think you're absolutely right. But for me, it was very different way in from the standpoint of, I started acting my freshman year in college. So I went to Brown University in Providence, Rhode Island, and I had never done any acting before. But I took my first semester freshman year. I took a theater arts class. It was a voice for theater arts 21, voice for the actor Shakespeare, taught by Professor Barbara Tannenbaum. And I fell in love with the art. I fell in love with acting, and I kept acting all during college. And at the time, I didn't know it was going to be my career. I was still kind of figuring out who I was, what I wanted to do, and so I decided to go to grad school, and I won a fellowship to study public policy. I've always been interested in government and how government affects the people, and how can we make the world better? How can we have real positive impact for more folk? And so I took this fellowship, and I went to Harvard to do a joint degree at Harvard Law School and the Kennedy School of Government, to get my master's in government and my law degree. But I wanted to keep acting because I loved it so much. So I joined a repertory company in Boston, kept doing plays. There's a wonderful, wonderful performing arts school in Boston called Emerson College. So I was able to go to Emerson, and do that when I wasn't studying, and then I would come down to New York a decent amount and audition for theater. And so it kept just growing inside of me, that it became clear that I really didn't want to do anything but be an actor. So I've never actually done anything else as a profession, as my main job my entire life, because I never practiced law. I never, I never took the bar exam. I didn't plan to do it. Even though I did graduate from Harvard Law School and I got my master's, I started acting immediately right after I completed grad school, and even during the last couple of years of it, I'd be going down to New York and trying to do different plays. And yeah, I took a job as a waiter, very typical, working 11 at night to 7 in the morning, at a high-end burger and shakes place and 24-hour place. And, I had people were like, "You have 2 graduates from Harvard and you're waiting tables?" And I was like, "Yeah." And, and so my days were free so I could continue to take more acting classes. I'd come home smelling like burgers and fries. And, but ultimately that's the journey, of the actor. You have to figure out ways to free up your time so you can hopefully get better at your craft and grow. And that's how that journey started. That piece, that acting piece of my life, and it's still a big piece of my life because it's what I do as my principal vocation, but at the same time, and it's what I've done for the last 20 some years, um, as my principal job. And I've been very blessed and fortunate that I'm able to do what I love, um, to sort of pay my bills, so to speak, as my main job, and then also be able to do a number of other things, because I think that most of us, everybody I know is a multi hyphenate. I call them commas. Everybody I know has commas, and it's wonderful to hear Ebony talk because she does so much, and has done so much already, and it's beautiful. So it's great to it's great to think about it, because when I hear Ebony speaking, it's reminding me of my acting classes. When she's talking about uncovering layers of yourself and discovery and really accessing those things. It's interesting in this profession, different jobs require different things from you, and sometimes you don't get to access and go to all these different places that even like acting class demands of you, because the acting class is you can actually choose your own scenes, so you can actually say, I want to lean in here and I want to do this. And then when you're doing it the other side, where the show or the movie or the play is dictating this is your character, so you're actually not really accessing all this other stuff. It's amazing. It's reminding me of my acting coach in New York, Tony Greco, who's still there. So shout out to you, Tony. Love you, and it's awesome.
Incredible. And I think that you both represent two sides of the spectrum of entering into the field, right? One for a love and passion. Well, you both have that love and passion, but you entered it for very different reasons. For Ebony, it's more, it seems like therapy. And leaning into that, you were alluding, Hill, a little bit into process and preparation. You both were, acting classes. And I posed to both of you, beginning with Ebony. There were a handful of audience questions about advice on staying grounded and maintaining your mental health. And obviously, I feel like that's a core part of being an actor, because obviously there's been, I don't want to speak on those who have passed, who have been in this field, because their mental health was not to the level that it should be, or for them to maintain a certain type of balance to carry on. And with that said, what advice can you offer for those who are preparing to enter into the field, in terms of maintaining their mental health?
I mean, part of my preparation and while I was attending the Terry Knickerbocker School, was going to therapy, like actual group therapy. And I know that this is something that a lot of actors do because, again, acting is about being able to access authentically all of these emotions. And so often we have blockages, within us from events that we've experienced, traumatic events from our childhood, and early adulthood and things like that, that prevent us from being able to access those emotions and then express them authentically. So therapy, group therapy, was a big part of what sort of developed me and prepared me to become an actor. And it's something that I definitely recommend for anybody who is interested in getting into the field. But just on a day-to-day basis, I think the most important thing is taking time for yourself. realizing that you are on your own unique individual journey and you can't compare your journey to other people's journey, and really just moving at your own pace. And I feel like that's really hard these days, with Instagram and just like the constant comparison, whether it's intentional or not, or whether you're aware of it or not. I think it happens a lot on a subconscious level. But making sure that you're really prioritizing your own well being, getting enough rest has been the biggest game changer for me. And when I began to value my rest, it also created sort of this dynamic where I was like, okay, do I want to rest or do I want to take this job? Is this in alignment with me? Is this easeful? Is this bringing more ease into my life? And so there was just questions that were brought up that sort of helped me filter out the things that aren't necessarily 100% in alignment with me. And just because you get like a good opportunity doesn't mean it's in alignment. And I think that's also something that we have to recognize when it comes to like our mental health and stuff like that, and prioritizing rest, because it's like we can get, good opportunities. Maybe they make us a lot of money, but are they in alignment? And that really just comes with knowing yourself and slowing down enough to know what feels good to you. Like doing what feels good to you is so important. Like for your mental health, I can't stress that enough. And you have to also know that you also have to have a sense of like, going out and partying, it might be fun, but does it really feel good? You know what I mean? And I think there's a certain balance that we can create there. But just knowing when your mind is really, really in a great space, and having that awareness is so important.
I completely agree with Ebony, but I would add one thing on top. At least in my experience, it's service really is what to me has supported my mental health the most. Um, when I'm in a mode of servicing others, Dr. King said we're all tied together in a single garment of mutual destiny, and I truly believe that my destiny is inextricably linked with yours, Darnell, and my destiny is inextricably linked with Ebony's. Whether we know it or not. If Ebony or you, if you're not doing well, then I'm actually not doing well either. So how can I be in service of you? How can I be in service of other folks? And it's that mindset and that intention has helped me. And even as an actor, I want to serve my acting partner. I want to serve the scene. I want to serve the script. I want to serve the play, serve the movie. And so there's different types of acting, to be honest, and different types of way people approach acting. There's people that I call battle actors that actually want to win scenes, and that's how they approach it. And I've acted with many of those people, and that's the way they do. And some of them get a lot of accolades for being, oh, he's such a great actor, right? Or she's such a great actor. But they're battle actors, and that's the way they approach. They want to make sure no matter what, they're winning the scene. And then there are other actors. I've sort of gotten to a place where I want to serve. I want to serve, and I'm attempting to not only do that in my professional life, but also in my personal life. And I found that when I'm in service mode, I'm happier. I'm 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 more present, certainly. And I think being present is a real key to being a great actor as well as being just a happy person. And so service has really helped me, and however you're motivated to serve, because I think our heart, my favorite word in the English language is the word courage. And if you speak French, you know that the root or the etymology of that word is coeur, the coeur, your coeur, which means heart, your heart. And if you actually really strip everything away and just say, what's in my heart? What does my heart want? What does my heart feel? You can ask yourself that simple question, and your heart usually will, if you get out of your head, and Ebony was actually speaking about this very eloquently earlier. If you get out of those fears and doubts that have been projected and fed into your brain, that's in your head. But your heart hasn't had those things like crushed. Your heart actually knows. You just need to get out of here and get into your heart. And and then serve, follow that, because usually your heart tells is leading you towards service because it authentically knows how inextricably linked we are. And I think I find that you can find that in acting, you can find that in life, and that helps a lot. My father was a psychiatrist. He passed away way too young. But so his whole life was dedicated to mental health, and part of the reason why I do so much work in the prison system with incarcerated individuals, formerly incarcerated folks, returning citizens, is that he was a psychiatrist within the system, working with conditional release programs, and I think that perspective for him that he sort of fed to me was, we're all in this together, literally. And, you know, it's great to be able to go, you know, to your yoga class and sit on that mat and get all yogified, but make sure that gets married with some measure of getting off the mat and helping somebody get on their metaphorical mat, you know, and whatever way that means or speaks to somebody. And it doesn't have to be a person. It could be in service of the environment or service of a child, you're as a parent, it could be, there's so many different ways to serve, an animals, whatever, but you get it. I think service is a good thing. I'm sorry it's so long-winded about that to just make the same point, but
No, I think it's incredible because in next part we're going to get into specifically how you are really kind of bringing more financial literacy awareness for Black communities that don't have the access to it, and that's something that's it's a personal struggle for me. But with that said, I think that it'd be great to talk about that in a moment. But before we get to that, I have a question, a fun question, but I want to wrap it up into one that I actually had myself. This is by Issa Veldwies. She asked, "What is your favorite episode of The Good Doctor?" And I'm curious to know within that, do at this point in your career, do you feel like there's moments where you want to put pressure on different writers or producers or whoever are the stakeholders to weave in specific storytelling of the experiences of the communities of which you're trying to represent?
that's a great question, and I think that there's different ways to approach that. At least for me at this point, I think that presence matters so much in the writer's room, in the executive suites, in front of the camera, behind the camera, all of those things. And so, to me, if you get the inclusion part right, then you don't have to be granular about saying, how come you're not writing about this, that, and the other? Because it organically happens because that person's voice is in the room. So that's why representation is so important. We have to fight for folks to be represented in the room so that their voices get heard, and also not just token representation, but real influence in the room. Whether it's a writer's room or whether it's an executive boardroom or whether it's a magazine or an agency, for instance, all of that matters to me. And so my fight has been more about attempting to support and help for inclusion, knowing that the what comes out of that is hopefully that result. Certainly, at times in my career when there's been scenes, so many times where, and I'll refer something back to what Ebonee said. Particularly earlier on in my career, there were opportunities to do projects that I just felt were they didn't represent Black people, certainly didn't represent Black men in the way that I wanted them represented as far as the story. Now, I make a distinction here. I don't judge the character, but I judge the actual, what is the message of the project. And so the message of the project is something I couldn't sign off for. So certainly I either don't do that, or if I'm already involved in the project, like it's a long running show, I then try to have conversations about it. But I've started to realize that you don't, if you actually have the voices in the room, then then that takes care of itself, because those people are able to have those conversations before the script ever gets to us on set. And particularly whether that's at the network or at the studio or actually in the writer's room. So, and then my favorite episode of The Good Doctor, a couple things come to mind, but the one we did most recently, where we went to Guatemala on the show and did this whole thing about Doctors Without Borders, I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was extremely well written. And I got to work with some amazing actors from Mexico and Latin America. And I just thought it was beautifully done. And so that was our season finale this past season, season 4. And I just thought it was beautiful. So that, I would say, that has become my favorite episode. There are other things that are earlier on that I could talk about, but just that one's the most recent, and it was really beautiful to do because it was so different as a departure from being out of the hospital and doing something different.
And before we wrap up this part, Ebonee, I would love your thoughts, because obviously we talked about your journey thus far, within this intersection. And being that this is the new rules, and what you've known so far, of course, transitioning from, modeling to, well, you're still a model. That never goes away. You still do it. But transitioning more into acting, what is a new rule that you feel that people that want to be in the field should have with them?
Do what feels good for you. Know yourself so that you know what to say yes to and what to say no to, because your energy will be pulled in a lot of different directions, and it's up to you to navigate where your energy is being directed and given. Um, and just take care of yourself. Eat well, rest. Just do what you can to feel good. I know I said this in response to the last question, but it's really something that I can't put enough emphasis on, because, this whole conversation is sort of centered around mental health. Taking care of your body and taking care of your vessel, taking care of the thing that carries you through the world for, the hopefully like 100 years that you get on this planet, is of the utmost importance. So don't neglect that.
Amazing. And Hill, what in the years that you have been in the business, what's a new role that you feel like you developed that you would like to pass on?
I guess I would say offer your most authentic, interesting, crazy self. In other words, don't try to fit into a box because someone tells you to do it this way or to do it this way. Everyone has their beautiful tapestry of what they bring to the table, and oftentimes I hear people saying, "Well, if I could just do it the way this person did, or do it how," the world technology is offering us this amazing decentralized opportunity, and which means you don't have to run through the traditional pathways of centralization where you have to get a job with a studio, or you have to get this right agent, and then you have to do this project or work with this person, and then have a project that goes like this. There's nothing like that anymore, because it's all decentralized. You can cut your own path, and you can create your own career very specifically. And that's what I love about technology and decentralization. And so embrace all of that. Tell your own stories. Create your own characters. You can be a writer, actor, producer, director, model, studio executive, philanthropist, all in the same thing. You could be Pierce. Come on over, Pierce.
Hey, hey, hey.
This is my son, Pierce. Hey, Pierce, do you want to be an actor, maybe? So Pierce is 5, going on 50, and he's kicking me in my head. But there we go. So that's part of. You can be a dad too. That's another thing you can be.
Thank you both for, illuminating on these very distinct points of taking care of yourself, but also being your authentic self. Because truthfully, I think that's what people have a struggle with in all fields, even beyond acting. I work in the museum industry, and that's very much a difficult, two difficult things that people have a hard time to maintain. But with that said, I think both of these are great notes. And now I think it's a great point to transition into talking about specifically the activism in both of your own lives and how you weave that not only in your work, but in all of the different kind of facets of your life.